Governor Katie Hobbs joins us in studio. Appreciate you being gracious with your time today. Barry Markson in for Gatos. And we got a lot of questions for you. We're going to run through. You face the gauntlet, as we say. I think we should start off with something. And Barry, I'm going to let the lawyer in the room prosecute this case. We want to talk about the Empowerment Scholarship Account Program and some of the challenges with it. Barry, I defer to counsel.
Oh, my goodness. To turn my mic on first.
A lot to prosecute there.
Yeah, no prosecution. This is it's grown so much, right? And now the I don't know if it's a rumor or real that they're saying this could cost the state $1 billion next year, which is just a crazy number. But we've been hearing that over the last several years, right? Since it started, we knew it was going to grow. And I guess my question is, I know you're in the budget negotiations now, which we want to talk to you about as well. But each year for the last 2 years, I think some people looked at this in Arizona and said, "Hey, is this the time to tell the Republicans we're going to put the brakes on this. We're going to put a cap on how much we spend on ESA." And we didn't really do that. At least it didn't seem like that. Mm-hmm. Is that part of the budget negotiation now? And will there be some kind of cap on this before it eats up even more of the budget?
Yeah. So first of all, when this was first passed, the price tag was estimated, and I think it was a gross underestimation on purpose. It was 5-figure cost, and now we're looking at almost $1 billion. In my Save the State, I called it $1 billion boondoggle, and I've called for some sort of caps since I've been governor, so in all 3 of my budgets, and no different this year. We proposed really reasonable income limits, and it seems to continue to be an absolute non-starter with Republicans in the legislature who have championed this program. And it's really frustrating, especially when you look at more new information that keeps coming out about what families are trying to use these funds for. A $16,000 cello, a Rolex watch. I mean, these are tax dollars that are being drained out of public schools, which are really the way that every student across the state has access to the quality education that they deserve, and going to individual families. I'm thinking
about having another kid just so I get a Rolex.
I didn't know that was part of the gig.
So Governor, let me ask you, and I know it's easy for me to say this, it's a negotiation. There's a lot of different points here. It's not just this. Is there a point, though, that we say, or you say as a governor, we're gonna put a cap on here. We're gonna institute some of these things to get this under the control. And if the Republicans say no, we want this to be completely because we just want to get rid of public schools or whatever the reason is, then we shut down the government. Is there a point where we say we're not going? Like, it's a non-starter for us too? Is there a point where we kind of have that conversation with the Republicans?
We're not at that point in negotiations. Could we get there? I don't know. There's a lot of things we're trying to get through the legislature and leverage right now. This is one of them, but so I don't know if we'll get to that point in the negotiations.
Can I want to continue that only just because I have a lot of questions about the ESA. Mm-hmm. By the way, do you think that the end goal or the 10 years, 20, 30 years down the road is that the state of Arizona is out of the public education business? Is that kind of where this is headed?
Well, I don't want to speculate on motives, but, I think there certainly are some folks who would like to see public education go away. The problem is that it creates this completely unlevel playing field, and students up in Show Low or on the Navajo Nation or in Southern Arizona, they don't have the same educational choice opportunities that the kids in Paradise Valley who are using these vouchers have. And so it just takes funding out of the public school that they have access to, and then they don't have the same opportunity as other students.
Governor Hobbs in studio with us. Talk to the governor as we do every couple of weeks. By the way, we're on YouTube. You can watch this as well as listen. Go to the KTAR YouTube channel. We talk about it, and I guess, we have a budget deadline looming,
yes.
And we just talked about kind of this blowing a hole in it with some of this. We've got, roughly 40 days?
June 30th.
Okay, June 30th. Where are we in this process?
As you know, I am required to put out my budget in January, and I did. And so we're still waiting to hear what the priorities of the majority in the legislature are. Talks have started, but I think right now the biggest obstacle is that the two chambers seem to be on different pages, And so, we're coming to crunch time where we have to really get together and hammer out the priorities I put out a budget that increases pay for our officers, that secures the border, that invests in important things like childcare, and we've yet to see where the Republicans land on these priorities.
Can I follow up on that? How well is the communication or negotiation with the Republican leaders? Is it open and honest communication? Do you feel like you can work with some people there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my staff work with the legislative staff all the time, and I'm in contact with members on both sides of the aisle, and those communications are critical to getting things done. So you see the politics that people play out in social media, but on a day-to-day basis, we really do have a lot of communication, and there are a lot of things that we can find common ground on.
Speaking about working with the legislature and our friend little Jake Hoffman, but what is we're now, you're 2.5 years in as governor. Yep. You still haven't had the legislature vote on department heads for many of the state's department heads. What's the status of that now?
Well, the list of unconfirmed directors is getting smaller, which I'm happy about. But, I said this earlier today. I feel like a broken record, and that I've been playing the same song since 2023, that it is really Arizonans deserve better than being held hostage by Jake Hoffman, who is leveraging his position as this Dino chair to advance his own political agenda. Yeah. And he's taking these qualified nominees who are doing great work for the state and moving the goalposts, holding them accountable for information he's just like dragging out of I don't know where, and people who have had like long careers in public service are having their reputation tarnished by this process.
Just being dragged through the political mud. Mm-hmm. The rumor is he's going to run for Congress. Are you going to make the first donation to get him out of the legislature? The governor is with us. Governor Hobbs joins us on KTAR. Let me ask you this, Bruce, unless
no,
you...
please.
Okay. A lot of people are asking questions about what's going on with ICE in Arizona.
Yeah.
They're arresting people at the courts. I know you're not... There's a lot of limitations of what the state can do.
Yes.
Here. But is there anything you are able to do to address what's happening from ICE and the federal government here in Arizona?
So, look, we're in communication with DHS to kind of continue to get more information about what their strategy is, and so we can communicate accurately to the public. President Trump ran on, he said he was going to deport criminals, and that would be his focus, and he would work on securing the border. And I wish that would continue to be the focus because, these indiscriminate roundups of people who are, by all accounts, playing by the rules and doing what they're supposed to do. If they're showing up at a court hearing, that's what they're supposed to do. That's rounding them up, arresting them is not making us safer. And I think all of law enforcement should be focused on what makes us safer.
Is there anything as governor you can do? Is there a negotiation? Can you, again, you said you're in conversations with them to get clarification, but as governor, is there any protections you can offer?
I mean, they're federal officers. This is their jurisdiction. So unfortunately, no, but we'll continue to make our position clear and try to work with them so that people who are playing by the rules feel safe continuing to play by the rules.
Okay. You've been signing some things. You've been vetoing others. Boy, you've got that red pen working, don't you? You signed an interesting law, and it's one that requires age verification for certain adult sites. Yeah. Can you tell me the mindset behind you signing this law?
Yeah, I mean, this is a similar bill was sent to me last year. I vetoed it last year. Since then, I've heard more and more from parents. I'm a mom. Certainly, if my kids were still younger, I'd be concerned about things that they're exposed to, explicit content. And so it's just a common sense measure that helps protect kids when we know they're being exposed to explicit content and it has harmful effects on them.
The governor is with us. Governor Katie Hobbs joins us on KTAR. Governor, I put on Twitter that you were going to be here and asked if they had questions, and this is a good question. Right. Someone is very concerned about Medicaid cuts that the federal government's talking about. That's obviously Arizona Access. Bless you. I've seen different numbers, but that this could affect hundreds of thousands of Arizonans who have their coverage through that. And I'm actually almost more concerned about the effect on rural hospitals that really rely on that money to stay open. What's the latest on that, and how does Arizona deal with that?
Yeah, so Medicaid is a lifeline for so many individuals across the state of Arizona. I was in the legislature when we worked with Governor Brewer to do Medicaid expansion, which added coverage for upwards of 500,000 Arizonans. And part of the argument there was an economic argument. It certainly saved lives, but in a lot of the rural areas, the hospitals were at risk of closure. And I just had a roundtable today with leaders from hospitals and healthcare systems across the state and heard the same stories again. Like, we're going to be faced with this again. It will devastate these communities. Some of these health centers or hospitals are the largest employer in these communities, and it will cause the loss of jobs if these places have to close. The other thing is, it's not just people on Medicaid that will be impacted. It will insurance rates will go up for for those of us who are paying insurance. It's a bad deal all around, and I know that the House bill that passed the House relies largely on work requirements. Arizona already has work requirements. People who can work should work. And I support that. The work requirements in the House bill are so rigid, and it requires so much more administrative burden on people to jump through these hoops, that's what we're looking at in terms of the loss of coverage for people. And as it stands, a couple 100,000 folks will lose coverage. What the Senate is looking at is going to be probably worse.
And that's, we're talking about, of course, the big, beautiful bill in the federal government. Yeah. So two quick questions. Well, I guess the first one is this part of the budget negotiation you're having now with the Republicans at all? Because this could land on Arizona pretty hard.
Yeah, and we're looking at billions of dollars that the state doesn't have the capacity to backfill, nor should we bail out Washington politicians for their bad decisions. They need to do better for the people they represent.
I do think it's important for people to understand, as you said, it's not just those on Medicaid or Access. Right. If you live in a rural area and there's one hospital and that hospital closes, you can have all the insurance you want. You don't have a hospital anymore.
Yeah, well, and a lot of these folks in rural areas are already having to drive long distances for care.
Right.
And that's given that they have reliable transportation to get there. A lot of Medicaid recipients don't, and it will make access to care even harder, and that will end up being more expensive care that ends up in our emergency rooms.
Do you coordinate with Attorney General Mays? Because I think that's one of her lawsuits, by the way. I've lost track of them. I think we're at 16, something like that. Is there any coordination between the two of you saying, hey, we've got to go in and stop this as far as the state goes?
Yeah, absolutely. And for her to have standing in lawsuits often needs the state to back up, like, this is how it will impact. So we've been coordinating with her on a lot of these fights.
I know we're almost out of time. Can I just ask you, in the budget, you may not be able to say this, what are the your top priorities in this budget? Like, what are your red line? Like, we're not going to go over that line.
Well, our revenue picture is a little bit different than it was when I introduced the budget, but childcare is a very important initiative. Paying our law enforcement more, and border security. Those are a few of the things, and hopefully we can find bipartisan support for those things in the budget.
Governor Katie Hobbs, our Talk to the Governor. I have one final thing, and I stole this. It was a suggestion from Chris Merrill, who's on before us, and we were talking about the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
And I know that you are working, and I'm going to use stakeholders are talking about it in the stadium, this and then tax and this and he had an idea, and I just want to throw it out there.
All right.
Okay, we just want to try to help you.
Okay.
Because right now it seems like the Diamondbacks are holding a lot of the cards. They've got a lot of leverage in this deal. The suggestion is you could call Tampa Bay. or just send a letter to the Tampa Bay Rays and say, you know what? I know you guys are having a little problem in Tampa Bay. Let's just say worst case scenario. You could move here. You could be the Rays, Arizona Rays. It fits well, even, for goodness sakes. So that maybe the city of Phoenix and the state of Arizona could get a little leverage back on their side and go, hey, we may not be without a baseball team. You know, you got to have a little something in your back pocket. Just take it for what it's worth, Governor. Just throwing it out there.
I will take it back to the
Take it into consideration.
Yes. Give it every ounce of consideration that deserves.
It deserves. Governor Hobbs, appreciate your time. All right, we'll see you back here in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
Outstanding. And good luck with your priorities as well. That's Governor Katie Hobbs in studio as we talk to the governor every few weeks right here on Outspoken.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gatos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.